Welcome back to the Poker Vlog, everybody. We are on day number 7 in Texas. We are currently up $2,378. We are going to be running up the action at Poker House 1-2. Let's go. It's a good one. Back in the 1-2 streets here, we are in for $500. We have a lot to go over this session, so we are going to start it off here. We look down at ace-8 of diamonds on the hijack. There's one limp over to me. I raise it up to $25, and we get a call from the low jack before the button jams all in for $70. When the action folds back around to me, I'm not going to be folding for $45 more. We're getting a ridiculous price, even if we're behind. So I stick in the call, and we are going to go off to a run out. There's an ace in the window, followed by an 8. We flop top 2 pair. The board runs out clean, and we are going to scoop this one. And our opponent flips over pocket queens. So we sucked out there, but like I said, we were getting the right price to make the call. We're starting out the session by winning a small pot. Feels good. But you know what feels even better? Looking down at 2 aces, pocket aces. Here we go. This session is starting off tremendously. I'm in the big blind, and there's 5 limps over to me. Definitely going to make this bigger, especially since we're out of position. I raise it up. I make it $40 to go, and we get a call from the cutoff. Going heads up to the flop here, and I look over at their stack. They only have $40 left, and there's $88 in the pot. So when the flop comes 8 deuce deuce, it's extremely dry, and it's very likely that they're not going to have any piece of this board. So I check it over to them, and they quickly decide to check back. Turn now comes the 4 of clubs, and I'm going to stick to the game plan here. Like I said, it's only $40 left to get in the middle, so we can get that all in by the river. And I just want them to catch up, hopefully make a pair on this board. So I check it over, but they check back once again. And the river, I think, is pretty good. It's the king of clubs. They're going to have a lot of king queen, king jack, king 10. I don't know. I got to put the money in here. I jam for $40 effective, and they call fairly quickly. We show our aces, and we are going to scoop. Before mucking their cards, they showed us that they had king jack, so they did, in fact, hit top pair on the river. So we did get max value. We definitely wouldn't have gotten paid if we didn't check the first 2 streets. We're going to move on to the next hand here. We have ace queen, and we're in the hijack. Fellow content creator, Funky Punts, and my best friend. He's a pretty cool guy. You should go check him out. He blind raises to $15. The action gets to me. Definitely going to be 3-betting ace queen here. I make it $50 to go, and Funky decides to put in the call. So we're going to go heads up to a flop here. He's a very good player, and he definitely puts you in a lot of tough spots, hoping to avoid those here and navigate this one easily. The flop comes queen high, which is great for us. Queen 9-7 rainbow. So when he checks it over to me, I'm definitely going to be betting here. I bet about 1/3 the size of the pot. I make it $35 to go. And he quickly puts in the call here. Still feeling really good about our hand. Obviously, it's hard for us to be beat. We're beat by a few sets like 9s or 7s, but I think those hands would check raise. So we're going to the turn, which is the 5 of diamonds. It's not the greatest card in the deck because 8-6 gets there, but not too worried about that. Remember that he blind raised, so he's definitely going to be defending a lot wider than he usually would if he raised under the gun. And his range obviously isn't going to be as tight. So when he checks it over to me, now there's a flush draw on board. There's a ton of straight draws. We definitely have to bet again. And I decided on a half pot bet of $90. I really think I should go about 75 to 80% pot here. Our hand is almost always going to be best, and there's a lot of worse hands that could call us, and we definitely need to charge those draws. So after a while, he decides on a fold. Kind of relieving in some way because I would hate to see a check raise there, but still, a little bum we couldn't get any more value. And I decided to needle him a bit and show him the ace of clubs.
Aces. Such bullshit.
Scooping in that pot, our stack is up to $700, so it's pretty nice to see. This next one is a bit wild. We have pocket 7s under the gun. There's a button straddle on, so I make it $20 to go, and we end up getting 4 callers, so 5 ways to a flop. Hoping to flop a set one time. I'm looking for 1 card and 1 card only, but the board comes out ace king 5 with 2 spades. It's really great for my range, but there's 4 players to act behind me, and I'm not going to bet into them. So when the big blind checks to me, I decide to check it over to the player on my left, who bets out quickly for $20. It's an extremely small bet. It's only 1/5 of the pot. The low jack puts in the call. The action is over to me. Obviously, calling would be suicidal here, but I did raise under the gun, and I have the strongest range here. I have aces, I have kings, and I have ace king. Nobody else in the hand should technically have those in their range. And this small bet of 20 seems relatively weak, like he has a weak ace, maybe a king, and the low jack putting in the call is practically dead money. So I decide that this is a good spot to make a move here. I raise it up. I make it $105, and the player to my left basically snap calls my 105. It's a really strange play because if he had a really strong hand, I would assume that he would think about it for a little while. So when he acts this quickly, it makes me think he just has 1 pair of aces. And the best ace I think he could have is ace jack. I think that this player would 3-bet ace queen pre-flop. So when the low jack folds and the turn comes the jack of diamonds, we got ourselves into this situation on the flop. We have to follow through here on the turn. I do think a large bet would get him off of ace 10, ace 9, ace 8. Obviously, if you hit 2 pair there on the turn, what are you going to do? I have pocket 7s, and I assume that we are beat, and I think we can get him to fold. He only has about $320 left in his stack, so that's what I do. I decide to go all in for $320 effective, and this player goes into the tank. He does not look comfortable, so I think we had the right read. It seems like he just has 1 pair, and after a little while of deliberation, he decides to fold, and he shows us what he had. He had ace 10. So our read was right when he snap called us on the turn, taking advantage of my under the gun range, having all the strongest hands on this board. Stack is looking good. It's up to 900, so we are $400 profit on the session so far. We look down at the ladies on the hijack. The under the gun player makes it $20. I'm definitely going to be 3-betting this every time. I make it $60 to go. And the under the gun player quickly puts in the call. So we're going heads up to a flop here, which isn't great for us. Ace, jack, deuce, rainbow. When he checks it over to me, I do feel like this is a board that I should be betting almost all the time with my 3-betting range. And the moment I decided to check and see a turn card, I do like a bet here because sometimes we are going to have to be checking our strongest hands on this board if we're going to be checking like queens, 10s, 9s. So mixing in checks with aces and jacks is definitely going to be necessary in the future. That way, if our opponents know every time we check back on a board like this, we don't have it. I decided to see a turn card, which comes the 3 of clubs, puts a flush draw out there, and the under the gun bets $40 here. It's a third the size of the pot, and I think we definitely have to put in the call here for 1 street. We don't have the queen of clubs in our hand, meaning it could be likely that the opponent is having a flush draw with king, queen of clubs, queen, jack of clubs, queen, 10 of clubs. So I think putting in the call here is definitely necessary. That's what I do, and we are going to evaluate a river, which isn't great. It's the deuce of clubs, and this isn't great because of the reasons I just stated. He definitely could have some flushes in his range that want to bluff turn. So when he bets out for $140, it seems to me like we just have an easy fold. We're beat by way too many hands here. So I let my cards go and we move on to the next hand. The next one here, we are on the button straddle. And here in Dallas, you get ultimate last action on the button straddle. We have queen 10 offsuit. The cutoff limps, and the small blind makes it $15 to go, which is extremely small. When the cutoff puts in the call, definitely going to be seeing a flop here for $10 more. So I stick in the call, and we're 3 ways to a flop of jack 10 7 with 2 clubs. When the small blind bets out for 20, and the cutoff calls, this is where I think I make my biggest mistake in the hand. Overcalling here seems a little bit light. We only have middle pair. We don't have any backdoor flush draws. But for some reason, in the moment, I did decide to make the call. And looking back, I definitely think this is a fold. If the cutoff folded, I think calling here would definitely be necessary. But going 3 ways here to a turn with middle pair is not ideal. You know what is ideal, though? The queen of hearts on the turn. We suck out a little bit here. We get 2 pair. And when the small blind checks to the cutoff, he decides to bet out for $50. The action's on me. I think raising here is probably the best play. The board is extremely wet. There's straight and flush draws everywhere. And there's definitely going to be some river cards that we need to let our opponents pay to see. So I make it $135 to go. I think going a little bit bigger here would be nice on this board texture. I think making it $160 to $175 is best. But I make $135. The small blind gets out of the way, and the cutoff quickly puts in the call. After the cutoff calls here, I'm not really feeling great about my hand. I feel like he's going to have a lot of sets and straights here. When the river is a horrific jack of hearts. Counterfeits our 2 pair. Really, really bad. We lose to a jack. We lose to better queens. When he checks it over to me, snap check. Definitely going to take this one to showdown. And like I mentioned on the turn, our feeling was right. We are going to lose this one to king 9. Sick turn card. He turned the straight, and we definitely value on ourselves there on the turn. Like I mentioned, I think calling the flop was definitely a mistake there, but that's okay. We're going to move on to king 7 here on the button straddle once again. Everybody limps over to the big blind, who makes it $17 to go. Again, a really small raise, and then everybody puts in the $17. I'm on the button straddle here. I could complete with king 7, or I could go for the squeeze. There's so much dead money in the middle, and this is a very weak line from all of my opponents. So I make it $100 here. I think even making it bigger, like $125 to $150 would be fine because there's so many players in the pot, and we just want to take it all down. Unfortunately, we are going to have to play a pot post-flop when the big blind puts in the call, and we're going to go heads up here to a flop. Getting ourselves in a sticky situation here. We're going to have to navigate here post-flop when the board comes queen 9-8 rainbow. That is an absolutely disgusting board here. When he checks it over to me, I don't know what else to do. I have king high, and I wanted to get him to fold all those lower pocket pairs and all those ace and other king highs. So when he checks it over to me, I'm going to take a stab, just hoping to see him fold. I make it $75, but he puts in the call. Digging ourselves into a deeper hole here, the turn comes the queen of clubs, and he checks it over to me. I think that this is just a spot where I have to give up. If he has a hand like jacks or 10s or like ace 9, this turn card is going to be really good for him, and he's probably not going to fold. And obviously, if he has a queen, he's going to probably go all in. But in the moment, I decided to just try and fold out some of those light floats on the flop, like ace jack, ace 10, and who knows, maybe he'll fold pocket 10s or pocket jacks on this turn card. I make it $125 to go, but he goes all in for $450. I think I was just trying to overcomplicate this hand and try and be a little bit fancy here, and we definitely get punished for it. Obviously, never going to be calling here with king high, no draws, so I fold my cards, and he's nice enough to show us that he had king queen. So he flopped top pair and turn trips. Obviously never going to get him to fold that hand. I actually don't really mind my squeeze pre-flop. I think the flop bet is fine, but the turn I should probably just shut down. Just a quick announcement, guys. If you want to play online poker with me, come play with me on Club GG. Click the link in the description. There's a lot of info down there. 24/7 cash games and tournaments, all stakes. I hope I see you there. Moving on here, we have a suited connector in the small blind, 5-6 of clubs. Man, I love these hands. There's 3 limps, and I raise it up to $35. We get 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a flop, which is kind of good for us, I guess. I don't know. 3-3 deuce with 1 club. We flop a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw. This is also just going to be a board where our opponents are going to swing and miss with all of their Broadway hands, all like 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited. So those hands are definitely going to fold if we bet here. So that's what I decided to do. I make it $40 to go. We only get 1 customer here. The low jack puts in the call, and we're going to go off to a turn card here, which is the king of spades. Definitely a card that's going to hit me more than them. We're going to have ace king, king queen, pocket kings, king jack. If our opponents did make a light float on the flop, they're definitely going to fold on this card, assuming it didn't hit hand. So I bet out, and I definitely bet way too small. I only bet $55. I like a bet of 80 or 90 in the spot. I don't need to go like massive. Maybe just go a little bit bigger to fold out a hand like pocket 4s, pocket 7s. When I bet out for $55, the opponent quickly calls this time, a lot quicker than he did last time. So that is a little bit scary here. There's no flush draws on board, so I assume that my opponent at least has 1 pair. The river, you are not going to believe. It's the 4 of spades. We river the straight. I honestly forgot we even had a draw on this hand, and I looked up and I was like, oh, I got the straight. I was ready to just blast off the river. And now we definitely still can blast off, but this time we have a value bet. So I stack up a bunch of chips and I make it $180 to go. I think going even bigger would be fine here. I think going pot for about 300 would be fine. But when I bet out for $180, we get snap called. I show him my straight and he cannot believe. He shows us king 4 of diamonds. Runner, 2 pair, and the river gave me a straight. He definitely floated us light on the flop, but holy smokes, what a run out that was, dude. In the next hand, we have pocket jacks here. We're in early position. There's 1 limp, and I make it $20 to go. And there's a lot of pre-flop action in this one, so bear with me. There's 1 caller, and then the button jams all in for $32. And this does not reopen the action, meaning when it gets back to me, I can't re-raise. My only 2 choices are to call or fold. So when there's 2 calls over to me, this is kind of turning into a disaster. I don't feel like going 6 ways to a flop with pocket jacks. Hey man, we don't really have a choice, and I'm not going to fold. So I stick in the call, and there's 1 other call as well. The pot is $165. There's 5 players with 1 all in. We go to a flop, which is pretty good for us, actually. 8 deuce 4 with 2 clubs. We flop an overpair, and the action is going to start on me. I lead out for a bet here of $50. I think going way bigger is definitely necessary. We definitely need to protect from overcards and flush draws. And it is funny, when you watch back these vlogs, you definitely notice all your mistakes you make with bet sizes and stuff like that. When the middle position calls here, we're going to a turn card. We're actually feeling pretty good about our hand. We just don't want to see any wet cards on the turn, and that's what we get, though. The 6 of clubs. Pretty gross. It brings in some straights, and it obviously brings in the front door flush draw. I think going for a check here and seeing what my opponent does is probably best. So that's what I do. I check it over to him, and he bets out for $56. And this is a fifth the size of the pot. A really weird bet here, but for this small of a price, I definitely don't think I can fold. So I stick in the call here, hoping to see a clean river. I don't know. I'm kind of lost in this hand. The river comes the queen of spades. Not going to be leading into him. I check, and he bombs it for $250. And this is just an easy fold for me, so I just muck my cards. And our opponent shows pocket 6s. He turned a set, and he's going to scoop that whole pot, including the side pot. Just happy that 6 was a club, so it was easier for us to get away. Queen jack here in the next hand. There's 2 limps to me. I'm in the cutoff. Definitely going to be raising here. I make it $25, and whoa, we're in Texas. We get 4 calls here. So we're going 5 ways to a flop, which is queen high. We flop top pair. And when it checks to me, I'm definitely going to be betting here. I decided on a bigger size of $60. Definitely want to charge all those random gut shots, because here in Texas, people will call with those to try and hit it. We get 2 callers here, so we're going to a turn card, which is the 7 of spades. It looks like a scary card, like it connects the board, but the only straights it brings in is like 6-9 and 6-4. But like I mentioned earlier, you never know what happens in Texas. The early position player checks, and now the middle position bets out for $60. A really small bet here. I decide to stick in the call here, and the other player folds. The river now is the 10 of diamonds, and our opponent goes all in for $50. I don't know what you want me to do. The pot's 500, and I have top pair, and he jams for a tenth the size of the pot. It's almost worth it to just see what he has, so I stick in the call, and he says, you're good. He has nothing. He has bottom pair, 9-5. We let him know we have a queen. We're going to scoop this pot. I did not expect to win there, but getting the right price, I guess my opponent is going to be bluffing 10% of the time, so it definitely is mathematically correct to put in the call there, but I was pretty shocked to scoop it in, and that was kind of a big pot. I didn't even realize it. $528 coming my way with just top pair. We've battled back from punting off quite a bit of chips. Hand of the night here. Ace, queen of spades. We're on the button straddle. The under the gun player makes it $10 to go, and the cutoff puts in the call. The small blind now 3 bets to $40, and the big blind, the under the gun, and cutoff all put in the call. Now the action is back over to me. I'm closing action. I have ace queen suited. I'm not going to be calling here, going 5 ways to a flop. Obviously that's a nightmare. I decide on a 4 bet, and I make it big. I want to charge those players, and I want to go heads up in position. I make it $250 to go, but to my surprise, the small blind goes all in. That's right, 5 bet jam for $650. If you didn't expect that jam, I bet you didn't expect the big blind to call. The big blind cold called the 3 bet. I 4 bet. The small blind jammed, and he calls the jam. I have no idea what's happening. The other players fold over to me, and now I'm in the tank here. I don't know what this means. I don't know if it represents strength from the big blind. I know that we're in Texas, and these players definitely seem pretty loose. One thing to note here, too, the big blind covers me. I have about $950 left, so it's basically a jam or fold spot. The other thing, too, is we're going to be going 3 ways all in. I just don't know what the big blind is doing this with. It seems like he's going to have a lot of pocket pairs, but I don't know. I've seen sticky players do this with like ace king and stuff because they don't like to raise it pre. They just want to see a flop. I don't really know what's happening here, but in the end, I just don't think I can stack off for 1200 with ace queen here. I decide to make the fold, and we're going to get to see what they have because they're going to go all in, and I cannot believe what I'm seeing. The big blind has pocket deuces, and the small blind has pocket jacks. What is happening right here, dude? Why couldn't I just put in the call, stick it in, go nuts? They're going to go off to a run out here, and I've never rooted so hard to lose a flip. I just don't want to see ace or queen. Please. And the flop comes 10-9-3. Obviously, jacks are way ahead here. The turn comes the queen of hearts. We would have hit top pair, and the river is the 4 of diamonds. Jax is going to scoop this one, but just a really interesting spot here, and a little bum that I didn't stick in the call. Obviously, it's like so hard to stack off with ace queen. I want you guys to comment what you would have done there. I really thought about this spot for a long time. Anyway, we're going to move on to the last hand of the night, and this one is going to be against Jack from Next Gen, and there's my boy Funky Punts on the other side of the table. We have ace 8 of clubs here in the cutoff. There's 2 limps to me. I make it $30 to go. And we're going to get 2 callers, one of them being Jack from Next Gen. The flop comes 8-4 deuce. We have top, and it checks over to me. Definitely going to be betting, and I decide on a bigger size. Our hand needs a lot of protection from overcards and flush draws. So I'm going to get $65 to go. We only get 1 customer, and that's Jack. He puts in the call. We're going heads up here to a turn, which is the queen of clubs. When he checks it over to me, even though it's an overcard, he's not going to have a lot of queen high floats on the flop unless it's queen X of spades. So it's a pretty big brick for us. We're definitely going to need to go for more value here on the turn. I make it $110. This will also hopefully give us a free river check back rather than checking back the turn, and the opponent could bomb it on the river, and then we're going to have to make a tough call on the river. So I make it $110, but our opponent decides to put us in the blender now. He jams all in for $400. And this is just not very fun for us. I don't know what he'd be doing this with. Like, if he had a queen high flush draw and hit the queen on the turn, it doesn't seem like he would want to jam here. It seems like he'd probably just want to call and evaluate a river, but I don't really know what he's doing this with. We block pocket 8s. Obviously, 4s and deuces are the biggest part of his range here. Limp calling pre-flop. In the end, I decide to fold my cards. I just don't really feel like calling it off here. And he's nice enough to show us that he did indeed flop a set. Pocket 4s. So he slow played the flop and check jammed the turn. Glad we didn't tilt off with the call there, and glad we could get away on the last hand of the night. We end up playing a bomb pot with pocket 10s, and there's a small bet on the flop and a small bet on the turn. We end up hitting a boat on the river. The board is 8-8, 7-7, 10, and the other board we have nothing. We end up getting a 3-way all in, and we end up getting chopped up because one of the opponents has quads on the board I have top boat on, pocket sevens, and the other player has a boat on the other board. So sick. The end of this session is not going great for us. We end up getting chopped up by the other opponents, and we lose about $400 in that one. Our stack has dwindled, and this session has been extremely swingy. We end the session with a flip, and Jack ends up winning. What a luck box. Oh, that's epic. Oh my god. Thank you guys for watching this vlog. We were into that game for $700 total and we cashed out for $235. So it's a net loss of $465. It was quite the session. A lot of interesting hands to go over. Appreciate you guys watching. The next vlog will be out soon. Later.